Okay, here we are. Hi, my name is Louise. I read books for Google Play, and today I'm really excited to be launching a new program of Google Hangouts in association with the Australian Romance Readers Association. It's an opportunity for ARRA members to connect with their favourite authors, and we are so delighted to welcome New York Times bestselling author Julia Quinn to our very first Hangout. So soon after the publication of her latest book, A Night Like This, which I read this week and absolutely loved. So Julia is our Author of the Month on Google Play, and you can find her books collected on the Store Together right now. On completing her art history degree at Harvard, Julia was contemplating a career as a doctor. This required serious thought and a tub of Ben & Jerry's, so she's definitely my kind of girl. And she decided while trying to pursue a medical career, she would write a romance novel. She deferred medical school twice due to the success of her early novels before deciding to quit and write full-time. We are really glad she did, as her award-winning books are delighting readers here and in Australia and around the world. Julia, when you were eating that tub of Ben & Jerry's, did you think that you would have such a successful career as a writer?
Honestly, I can't remember. It was so long ago. No, I think the Ben & Jerry's was when I was trying to think about going to medical school. The romance came later.
Oh, did it? Oh, sorry, I misread your,
now that I think about
your website.
But, I mean, I always, when I started, it was always with the idea that I would pursue it, you know, as far as I could go. I know there's some people say, well, I wrote a book, and I wanted to see if I could, and I always wrote a book with the intention of publishing it and hopefully being successful, so I hoped.
But it must be nice to have your dreams come true.
Yes, it is, very much so.
Fantastic. Kat, do you have a question for Julia?
I do. So whenever anyone asks me for a historical recommendation, I always tell them that my most favourite first chapter ever is from Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. So I wondered how easy or difficult was that first chapter to write?
I might have to run over to my bookshelf and get a copy to look again. The first chapter or the prologue?
Must be the prologue. It's how it begins when we talk about the crush and how it's been going on for years and years.
Okay, yes. That prologue actually went pretty smoothly. That particular book, though, the hard part was in the plotting it, because it was the first time I'd had a book where I had two characters who I had already really established who they were. I'd very frequently taken a secondary character and then given them someone completely brand new. And the nice thing about that is that when you do that, you can really mold the new person into what you need for your story. But if you've got two people who you've totally established and people know who they are, you can't just suddenly decide, well, I need Colin to be like, you know, this, you know, bitter person with daddy issues, you know, to make this story work. Well, I can't do that because he's not. And so it was actually really difficult to figure out how to plot that book. That opening, though, the prologue, it was, I don't know, it was one of those parts that just flowed. It was great.
I'm going to come back to Heather in a second for a question. Heather, do you want to type in your question and I'll come back to you? Kate, do you have a question for Julia?
I do. I will have a question prepared, but I'd like to go back to the question that Kat just asked for a second.
Okay.
Because I loved that book as well. Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, I think, is my go-to when I'm having a bad day. Do you have any of your characters or any of your pairs that are your secret favorites that you know you're not supposed to love one better than the other, but you really kind of do?
No, you know, there are different things I like about different ones. I definitely have a soft spot for Penelope, though, I think, because I think she just resonates with so many people, and her whole experience of feeling like she doesn't know how to be the person on the outside that she knows she is on the inside is something that so many people just can understand, and that is something that I pulled, I think, pretty directly from my time in high school. And I think a lot of people must have felt that way because I got so many emails from readers saying, were you at my high school? Were you in my head? So I think I probably have a soft spot for her because that I pulled so directly from my own sort of emotional memory.
Okay, we'll go to Heather's question now, who's having a little bit of problems with sound. Heather asks, do you enjoy meeting readers, and what is the strangest thing a reader has said or said to you?
I do enjoy meeting readers. I think the strangest thing actually came in an email early in my career when a reader told me that I'd be a better writer if I used more nouns, verbs, and adjectives.
As opposed to what, exactly?
I don't know. I thought I must be really, really talented if I can write an entire novel entirely with adverbs and prepositions.
That's a very helpful tip.
But I think that was the strangest. I'm sure there have been other strange things, and I may have just blocked them.
Because you do quite big tours around the US, don't you?
I do. They sort of vary in size. I just finished one. We were in down in the Phoenix, Arizona area, then up to Idaho, and then to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then the suburbs of Chicago. It kind of was a bizarre little crisscrossing of the country, but I'm back.
Fantastic. Wendy, do you have a question for Julia?
I do. Julia, when you get into a novel and you get involved with the characters, do you find it hard to actually switch off from the characters and walk away and return to sort of normal life almost, I suppose?
I don't have any trouble with that at all. I know some writers do. Maybe if I did have trouble with it, I might get my writing done faster because I could get back into everything faster, or I'd write longer, but I have no trouble walking away and turning on the television set and watching something else. So I don't know. I don't know what that says about me.
So it's quite hard so you have a time that you write every day, or are you quite fluid about where you write, or is it whenever something
pretty
catches you?
fluid. I'm not as disciplined as I really ought to be. So I'm pretty fluid. I'm not the best example. Like, if you want to learn how to complete a novel, I'm not the person you should emulate.
I'm just going to ask Willie, who's also having a few sound issues. Willie, would you like to type in your question now, and I'll ask that of Julia in just a second. And we'll go back to Kat. Do you have another question for Julia?
I have many questions, but got any plans of coming over to Sydney? Or anywhere
I'd
in
love
Australia?
to. I mean, it's certainly a huge dream of mine to visit Australia, well, and New Zealand, but probably Australia first. We'll see. You guys can all start lobbying HarperCollins Australia to, send me on a tour. That would be fabulous.
I think HarperCollins Australia are watching right now, so...
Excellent! Send me to Australia. I will be charming. And I was going to say I don't eat that much, but, I eat a little, so.
And Kate, do you have another question?
I'll go back to the question I was originally going to ask.
Okay.
With your background in, contemplating a medical career, have you ever sort of considered branching off from historicals into romantic suspense or maybe contemporary romance, something that would use that medical knowledge?
Well, I put some medical stuff in the historicals, which I actually find really fun because then you have to explore not just what the actual science is, but what was understood at the time. And so I did give a character malaria, and that was fun. My husband was really excited about that. He's an infectious disease specialist. And then in Just Like Heaven, which was my book from last year, I gave the hero a really bad infected leg wound. And so then my husband doesn't usually read I usually don't, well, he's about 16 books behind at least. But in addition to that, I don't let him look at anything before it's published because he'll have opinions and they'll always be wrong. And so, but he's a doctor, so I showed him the scene. I said, could you look at the scene and see if it seems medically accurate? And he read it, and he just looked at me and goes, yeah, he has to die. I was like, no, I don't think you understand how this works. He can't die. He's the hero. He goes, oh, no, he's dying. And so I went back, and I sort of toned it down a little bit and finally handed it back. I said, okay, assuming everything that could possibly go right goes right, can he live? And so chances are he wouldn't have, but in my world he did. But to get back to your question, not romantic suspense. I'll be honest, plotting is not my strongest point. So I don't think I could write a mystery or a suspense novel where everybody couldn't figure out what was going on by page 3. It's not what I'm particularly good at. So no, I've never really ruled out doing a contemporary, but I feel like I've never had a really great idea for one. No burning desire like I need to write this story. And the truth is that I still very much enjoy writing historical romances. It's fun for me. I like it, and I'm successful at it, and I'm getting paid nicely. And so it's kind of like, well, and I don't have enough time to write something else in addition to it. So if I wanted to change tack, it would probably have to be an instead of kind of thing. And it doesn't make sense if I'm doing well, if I'm liking my job and I'm doing well, to actually like put it aside just to try something new. I mean, it might be different if the career wasn't going well or if I wasn't enjoying it, but there's no good reason not to do it. So.
Well, what I loved about your book is the humour and the wit. That must be really fun, because I was smiling wryly and laughed out loud a couple of times reading A Night Like This.
I love hearing that. I don't even think it's my funniest book.
Louise, can I jump in there with a funny story?
Sure.
When I went into hospital to have my baby, I knew that I wasn't really going to have a whole lot of reading time, so I didn't bring anything new. I brought a copy of What Happens in London, because I really liked it, and I thought, well, I've already read it, so it's not going to be a big deal if I have to put it down and deal with whatever it is that this baby is going to throw at me. And I ended up actually having an emergency C-section.
Ooh.
So I had stitches, and I couldn't read the book because every time I laughed, because it was so funny, you know, it really played into everything that I found really charming about your novel. So every time I laughed, you know, there was intense pain. So I actually had to hide it in a drawer and not read it anymore because I was in serious damage of reopening my wound if I kept reading it.
Well, I will take that as a compliment.
It's meant as a compliment.
Okay.
A gory, maybe too much information compliment, but a
No,
compliment.
I like that story.
Yeah.
Sharon's just rejoined the Hangout. Sharon, do you have a question for Julia?
Sorry, and I hope it hasn't been covered before. Julia, with the Bridgerton series, there was so much great information. How do you go about doing your research? And how much research do you need to do these days, given that you've written so much about this period?
Well, you know, I kind of joke that I have a very broad and shallow knowledge of the period. In that, you know, if I'm starting a novel, I don't need to look up how to address a duke or what were the general sort of societal customs, that sort of thing, because I know that. The only type of research I usually do before I get started is if I'm sending a book outside of London, I might research the area, you know, just to get an idea, the lay of the land. Then what happens is invariably I do a lot of research as I go along. Things like as needed. For example, in It's in His Kiss, somebody made a joke about Little Bo Peep. And I loved the joke. I remember actually writing the joke, being like, oh, that's so funny, you know. And then I thought, oh my gosh, what's the earliest known reference of Little Bo Peep? So I had to, luckily it's in Shakespeare, so I figured I was okay. So that's the sort of thing I look up as I go along. That was quick. Other things, it's crazy. You know, in The Lost Duke of Wyndham, I have my hero and heroine looking at a reproduction of a painting. Well, the first question was, what constitutes a reproduction of a painting in that time period? I mean, it's not like we can just pick up an art book with photographs, so I had to figure that out and somehow make that clear to people that, you know, they're seeing some kind of etching, so they're not going to get the color, blah, blah, blah. And then, for some reason, I decided I needed to know where that painting was in that year on the off chance that the hero, who had been on the continent, had seen it in person. That took like 3 hours that I absolutely did not have at that time. But for some reason, I just got hung up on it, and I had to know. And so these are the types of things I end up researching as I go along. And often, there are these tiny little things that don't matter to the story at all. I could easily pull it out. The story would not be affected. You know, they're not central to the plot. But I like to think that they add something overall. so when you get to the end, it just feels that more real, I guess.
And how did you have certain writers that you read when you were younger that inspired you to write in this period? Who did you love when you were growing up?
Well, when I was growing up, I would say Victoria Holt. She didn't really necessarily write in this period, but it just gave me a love for books that were set in earlier times. And I think probably what I loved even better was her Philippa Carr persona, which were a little bit more historically based. Her Daughters of England series, I quite like that.
I'm so sorry I had to run away. Someone at the door.
Oh,
I'm back.
Okay.
Someone knocking at the door. These things happen when you're doing a hangout from home. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Does anyone else have another question? Would you like to wave your hand? Anyone got a question? Wendy?
Willie had hers typed up there, Louise. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, I'll read that through. How do you feel about writing in the Victorian era if you decided to write more of the Bridgertons?
I don't know, to be honest. And the thing is, that would be the early Victorian era, and which is so different than the late Victorian era. I mean, was on the throne for, well, definitely more than 60 years, because with all the Jubilee stuff, they keep talking about how the last one was Queen Victoria. I'd have to see. My gut feeling is that the early Victorian era isn't, it doesn't necessarily feel that much different than the Regency. So I'd have to feel that one out.
And Heather's got another question as well. She wants to know who you read. I'd like to know who you read as well, inside and outside of historical romance, who you're enjoying right now.
Well, inside historical romance, let's see, I love Eloisa James, Lisa Kleypas, although she's writing contemporary now as well. And I'm going to forget people, so I'm just saying right now I'm going to forget people. I'm really excited because Danelle Harmon just reissued some of her older books as ebooks. As somebody has their mouth open, shocked. Are you excited? I'm excited. Yeah, she's a real old friend of mine, so I was so excited when she started doing that. Who else am I reading? Joanna Bourne, who's new. Stephanie Sloane, who is my bestie, and we've been best friends for years, far predating her being a writer. Who else I'm forgetting?
And is there anyone outside of historical romance that you're enjoying? What do you read when you're not reading historical? And is there anyone outside of historical romance that you're enjoying? What do you read when you're not? I think we've just lost Julia for a second there. Let's just see if she can come back in. She's coming back in now, so she seems to drop out when someone else drops in. And you're back, Julia.
Yes. Well, now I see next to me in my book cover.
Oh, Willie, we've definitely got sound from you now. We've got a little bit of feedback.
I heard her laughing.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, you're back, Willie. Great. Have you got a question for... We've just gone through your question about the Bridgertons, I'm afraid. Do you have another question for Julia? Oh, that's... Okay, you're back, Willie. Great. Have you got a question for... We've just gone through your question about the Bridgertons.
No, I did hear it. I was watching the video on...
Oh, we've lost Willie again. Willie, actually, I can hear myself. Are you watching this video somewhere else? If you are, could you turn it off? Because we're hearing a little bit of reverb. Kat, you've got another question for Julia.
I do. So Julia, it's been around 17 years, I think, since your first published novel.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Thank you, Wikipedia. I was just wondering if what are some of the biggest changes, if any, that you've noticed, either with has it gotten easier to write the books? Has the relationship with readers changed? So I'm just curious to see, to hear from a veteran author, some of the things that you've noticed.
Well, the biggest change by far has been just in the last few years with ebooks. And, one thing that's great about it is, I was just talking about this with someone specifically with international readers. If you have an e-reader, you can get my books so much faster than you could before. So that's exciting. And social media also. I had no idea how international my readership was until I launched a Facebook fan page. I have over 70,000 fans on Facebook, and only 38% of them come from the United States, which shocked me. And in fact, it shocks everybody who hears about it. And nobody can ever guess where the next biggest are. In fact, on the Facebook page, just for fun, I had people try to guess what the next 5 was. Nobody was even close. It was crazy. The number one after the United States is Indonesia.
Wow.
Yeah, followed by the Philippines and Turkey.
They love you in the Philippines.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next ones kind of go off and on. For a while it was Mexico. Now it's back. The UK is coming back. But so that's been another big thing, is just sort of getting a sense of just how international everything is, which is one of the reasons it was so exciting to be able to do this. The other, sort of the change on the other end would just be the consolidation of publishing houses. When I was sending my first manuscript out, there were 12 different places or so you could send it. Now there are probably 4. It's crazy. I mean, everybody's been buying up everybody. So it's a very different marketplace for writers in terms of how we sell books with the publishing house. And then the relationship with readers has changed too, especially with social media.
I've got another question for you about London. Have you ever been to London? Because you write about it, so I lived there for a long time, and it just feels so real to me. Oh, we've lost Julia again. She's coming back. She's coming back.
I'm
there
here.
you are. Did you hear my question? I just wondered if you'd ever been to London, because you write about it so well.
Yes, several times. I took a gap year, and I spent that mostly in Gloucestershire. And so I joke that I'm one of 11 Americans who knows how to say Gloucestershire. But I visited London then, and then, I've been a couple times just as a tourist, and then in 2001, I lived there for about 4 months. My husband was taking a course at the London School of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene, which is over by the British Museum, so we lived in a little place right by the Goodge Street station, and that was fun because I just got to walk around and be there.
So much fun. London is amazing like that. You must have been inspired at every corner.
Well, the nicest thing was to be there for such an extended amount of time. You don't feel like you have to do something every day, and you don't have to pack in every day. You just sort of amble, and you don't feel like you wasted time. So that was really nice.
The other question I had written down is where do you get the ideas for your characters? Do you meet people and think, oh, I like that sort of personality trait, I'll weave that in, or where do you find these people?
Occasionally. I mean, I remember before I did The Duke and I met someone who stuttered. So that was something that I was thinking about. I gave one of my characters, the heroine from On the Way to the Wedding, you can tell has a mild case of obsessive-compulsive disorder. And that was, based on some friends. And I think everybody has some of it, so I gave her little bits of, like, my thing, like I always count stairs as I walk. If I'm not talking with someone, I always count the stairs as I walk up them. I just assumed everybody did. I've discovered my husband freaks out if, you put the shoes away and you don't have the left on the left and the right on the right. So I gave her that too. And, when I found out, I was like, I've been with you for 20 years. I didn't know this? How's that possible? So things like that. But it's not, I don't have any characters that I look at and say, that is this person.
Well, I think we're getting to the end of the hangout now. Has anyone got one last question for Julia? Kate.
Just to tie back into the ebooks, what is happening with the Bridgerton epilogues?
Those are, well, they're no longer for sale. They've been pulled. And the reason for that is that on the Monday after the American Thanksgiving, which is in November, they will go on sale as a collection. And I believe they'll be priced at US $3.99.
So that's an ebook collection?
Yes, an ebook collection with a bonus story.
Oh.
And the bonus story is called Violet in Bloom, and it's basically Violet's life story.
Oh, how nice.
So I'm really excited about that. I like that one a lot. And then some 6 to 9 months later, the same collection will come out as a paperback called and it's going to be called The Bridgertons Happily Ever After.
Oh.
But we wanted to pull the individual ebooks off for a while leading up to this. And I also wanted to be very sure that when the collection was priced, it was priced in a way so that the people who've been buying the second epilogues all along at $1.99 didn't suddenly have to spend $8 just to get the last two. And so it's priced what you would have paid to get the two all along, plus you get the bonus story, plus you get, I guess, all the other ones again. So.
And when can we expect to see a new novel as well? Is there something else new coming along?
Well, in December is The Lady Most Willing, which is my second collaboration with Eloisa James and Connie Brockway. So that's really, we've had a good time with that. We did a book called The Lady Most Likely, which was a novel in 3 parts. And then the next Smythe Smith book will be a year from now.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I wanted to hold this up because everyone should have a little look and see what this looks like. Oh, and it is fantastic. I've really, really loved it. I will be going back and working my way through your backlist now. And as I mentioned, you are our Australian Romance Readers Association Author of the Month on Google Play, which is very exciting that you are our first. And so far, so good. So we will be back in a month's time, perhaps, with someone else. Is there anything else you'd like to say to your Australian readers before we go, Julia?
You know, I can only think of like really corny things like "g'day," you know. So no.
We like corny, but thank you so much for your time today. We know we've taken you away from your supper of sushi, but it has been a real pleasure. Great. Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.